Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. I'm your host, and my name is Nimesh Radia. And I always love starting the podcast by saying thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel so blessed with this podcast, the people it reaches. My objective is really to simplify spirituality and guide people on the spiritual journey and to share whatever knowledge I channel. It's not my truth, it comes from universal truth. So thank you, thank you, thank you for everyone that supported messages. Thank you for allowing me to guide you on your journey. My name is Nimesh Radia. I'm an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. And I love guiding people to be their authentic selves. I feel like we're being pushed to be our true selves, release whatever we're holding on to. I love guiding people to release the programming to be truly be, and guiding people to their gifts. So thank you. And I love that I get to do that. And I also have the beautiful pleasure to also have some amazing, beautiful guests on this podcast. And I'm excited to have Hannah on this podcast. She's only somebody I've met only recently, but has already had a big impact on me, and such a beautiful energy and such a light onto this planet. So Hannah, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Welcome to the
Hi,
podcast.
everyone. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah. It is spelled with a J. I always tell people that wasn't a typo. It wasn't a mistake. That's actually how you spell my name. I'm half Spanish, half English. And in Spain, a J is pronounced H. Think Juan, jalapeno, right? I blend. I feel like I'm going to introduce myself very differently to how I usually introduce myself. I'm very much used to doing a lot of business podcasts, and you give the spiel, the elevator pitch, but I don't really feel that that's what I want to say here today. What I want to say is that I have been dedicated, devoted, committed to the journey of inner development for the last 12 to 13 years. I work multidimensionally, and my speciality is bridging business and spirituality. So I take spiritual concepts and I put them into life, whether that's business, whether that's your marriage, whether that's your day to day, because actually one of the most spiritual things that we can do is be a human being. Right. And so we use this to help people scale their businesses, improve their lives, raise the bar on their lives. But it all comes from the same work, which is this inner development and raising of consciousness and awareness.
Wow, so beautifully said. And it's that bridge is kind of what we need right now, right? And it's that the planet is going through such a shift, and I feel like I relate to you because also I spent so much time in the corporate world, and I know part of my journey is also to be that bridge and to be that guide from. I feel like we're going through such a massive shift, and our voice is needed to be that bridge, to be that guide to let people know they have an option. So beautiful introduction. You've always struck me kind of ever since we first spoke as somebody that is so connected to your guides, but also being present in the third dimension. And it's really interesting you talked about being human, because I'll always say we're a soul having a human experience. And so often we want to bypass that human experience, right? It's like people, when they come to get a reading from me and open their Akashic records, it's like sometimes they just want to be fixed. Tell me what I need to do next. And all of a sudden, and we're here to have the human experience. And that's what we're here, so thank you for that intro. I feel like there's so many of us going through an upgrade and going through a shift. I know since some of the conversation we've had, I'd love for you to share what you're feeling is happening on the planet right now, this energetic shift that everyone's been talking about. What's your take on it? How are you feeling that's what's happening on the planet?
Let's talk micro then macro. So what am I feeling this week, to get super specific, and then we can zoom out and you're talking about something more global, right? Because the pull is to understand who we really are, right? To understand that we're consciousness in a human form, but also be able to be human within that and evolve, right? So there is a push to go from living externally to living internally, but through the internal to the external. and there's this great rising of consciousness, right? And so you hear that, and for some people, you're experienced in this work and that makes complete sense. And for some people, you're like, I kind of get that. But then also that is like, if you've got no direct experience of that, that can be meaningless, right? So what is a practical example of this? It's so funny. Nim's read my Akashic records on Monday, was it? And we had this call, and I was like all blissed out, and I was relaxed, and it was the day of work had finished, and it was just like. And today, we were talking about before this podcast, I woke up so agitated, right? And this is the work. This is the work, right? We think that this is wrong.
I
We
love
think
it.
this is bad. We think that this is different to the collective rising in consciousness. But that agitation is showing me something. I've sat down and I'm agitated because I've been tolerating things for a long time that are not matched to where I'm going and not a match to where we're going. Evolution of the soul is not this esoteric concept. It's so human, right? And
That's very
so
true.
these are human themes that we're working on. And so for me personally, it's like, what am I tolerating that can't go with me? What parts of myself can I die to so something else can be born? For you, it might be a different theme, right? But it's basically pattern work. That's what we're doing. Pattern work, shedding old patterns that hold us in greater density so we can move into greater light, right? There's 101 ways that you can say it, but at the core, it's the same.
Yep. So beautifully said. It's just to give context, we are recording this on the day of the solar eclipse, and the period that we've just finished for me was very expansive, very kind of felt such a shift inside me and around me. So the fact that you're feeling that shift inside you is, I feel, all part of the energetic shift that's happening right now. And it's being human. We're meant to experience things, and that's really, for me, this what this space is about. If you're feeling angry, feel angry. If you're feeling emotional, you want to cry. And it is, I call it kind of releasing the programming, shedding all our layers, because we've been through so much religious programming, societal programming, parental programming, and I feel the phase and what the push is right now is to release all those layers, as you talked about, to truly become authentic and to be. And for me, that's the most human we can be. I know for me personally, it's like I love the spiritual work, and it's like if I could spend all my life, all my time in that realm, I would do. But I also recognize that I chose to be human, and part of my time has to be in this human realm, and using my voice and to guide. And I guess for our listeners, that's accepting who you are and accepting everything you've been through. And I'll always talk about this, the spiritual part. When you're expanding, awareness is always the first step. And asking those expansive questions to be truly understand where we are in the moment allows you to become aware. And the next step is always acceptance. And I feel like acceptance is where we struggle the most, because we have to accept this version of us. We have to, it's like once you start asking questions and you realize you've had all this programming, sometimes you start to judge yourself a little bit, right? But accepting who you are is really part of the journey. So, Hannah, I'd love to know more about, based on a conversation, you feel very connected to the energies and your guides around you. But I'd love to know more about your journey and how you came to be this aware.
I'm like, when I'm asked this question, I'm like, how long of the story do we tell? That's
Whatever's in your heart. Whatever's in your heart.
That's the pause. I think I always pinpoint this. There was a mystical connection for me as a child. My mother used to say I danced like a gypsy, and if I'd been born into a Spanish gypsy family, I'd be working from the age of 2. I had these weird movements, these weird dances that, we used to joke about there being past life, but probably not a joke, really. And this obsession with death, I would always say to my mother, Mum, you've brought me to life, but you've done that not knowing what happens after I die. Why would you do that? Why have you? And that was very challenging for a toddler to bring that to a parent. I'm talking young, right? And the great irony is that death has been one of the greatest awakenings in my life. You know, the great heroine's journey that I've been on is supporting my mother through her dying process. So it's funny, those seeds that start in childhood that make sense as we become adults. At 19, I was diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and eating disorder. And I was studying an undergrad psychology at the University of Leeds in England. And I was the top performing student. I got the best grades in all university. And, you know, at the end, I thought, if I'm the top performing, most high flying student in this, and I think this is so limited and it has no practical application to me or the journey that my mother was going through. My mum was diagnosed with cancer in 3 weeks that I was diagnosed with all of the mental health labels. So great initiation. And remember that next time something terrible happens, what if it's the best thing that ever happened to you? Because that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I just didn't know it then.
Yeah.
And I made a decision at 19, and I think sometimes we come to live out a story, and then there's always different timelines, right, depending on choices that we make. But I remember calling my father at 19, and I said, Dad, this is not good enough, you know. Came from a family of refugees, all of them on antidepressants. Mum was on antidepressants until she passed away. And I said, Dad, I look at Mum's life and I don't want that. Like, I don't want that. I said to him, I said, Dad, I'm going to learn how to heal, and then I'm going to bring it to the world. And I had no idea the enormity of what I said. But I spent, you know, the next 7 years learning how to live, and my mother learned how to die. I was by the bedside for a big chunk of time. And to give context, my dad had cancer from when I was 15 to 18, and then my mum got cancer when I was 19. And my mum passed away when I was 26. So we're talking 11 years in and out of hospitals, right? Fantastic education on life. And one of the interesting things that, I mean, we're talking about spirituality here, so we'll talk about a big awakening. I don't tell this usually, but I will tell this here. As Mum's end on the physical form grew closer, it impacted me in a way that the veil grew thinner for me. And I was doing a shamanic course at the time, which I recommend to anyone. Chris Waters, Spirit of the Inca, extraordinary woman course training. I'm very grateful for that. And so I was doing all of this energy work, trauma healing work, shamanic work. Mum was passing away. And I started getting a lot of intuitive hits in a way that I hadn't before. An example is 3 days before my mum died, I knew that she was going to die. I packed a bag. I was in a neighboring town, went to, like, everyone else had left. It was just me and mum, but I was like, I knew I had to be there. And then anyone else to fly back in. And feel like, how did you know? I was like, I don't know. I don't know. But, you know, when mum passed away, it was three days. I think it was 2 or 3 nights. She died on a full moon, July 16th, an eclipse actually, 2019. And I started entering altered states of consciousness, and this was the first time that it happened without anything else bar myself. And I got this vision as Mum was in her final probably 24 hours. And I looked down, it was quite alarming. And I had this big belly that didn't belong to me, and I was much darker skinned. I suddenly looked out and I was in these mountains, and I didn't know where the mountains were at that point. And in this kind of experience, I realized that in this life, I helped children come to life and I helped people pass away. Okay. And I had this message really clearly: Mum's leaving here, but she's being born somewhere else. Right. What was even wilder is 2 days later, I had a shamanic training. I'm very committed to living. And if I've made a commitment to be a shamanic training, it doesn't matter that it's the day after the funeral, I will be there. Okay. And I sit down and they start talking about the women, Masse Pompidou, I think you said like that. And they started talking about the dying process. And I realized that I had channeled the whole dying process the night before, and I knew everything they told me, and I experienced it 2 days before. And in that moment, I realized that it was the Peruvian mountains that I had seen, that I wasn't crazy, that it had just been confirmed. And I went, okay, There's something in here that I'm gonna
I
have
love
to
it.
look
I love
at.
it.
You know what I mean? I'm like, this
I love it.
is too much. And that was really the opening. And since then it's been consistent practice and prioritizing this path, because it's not an experience, it's a devotion for life.
I love it. It's not an experience, it's a devotion. Should be on a t-shirt somewhere. It's really interesting you say in terms of how much we grow through our most difficult periods. And I always love asking on this podcast for listeners just to take a moment and just, what is the most difficult thing you've experienced? And how have you grown from it?
Mm-hmm.
Spiritually, what did that mean to you? Because it's interesting you talk about death, and my dad, he passed away 30 years ago. He's now one of my guides. And I wasn't really spiritual at that point. I was very mental. But even going back 30 years ago, he passed away in India. I remember when he left, being in a car with my brother and my sister, and all three of us were like, we're not going to see him again. There was a knowingness, that long ago that, he was no longer going to be on this realm. And I still remember that today. I still remember exactly what happened. And I know that was part of my expansion. Mom leaving was also part of my expansion, and me having conversations with her afterwards and knowing why she left this realm. And, everyone listening to the podcast have heard me talk about Sidra. She's my mentor, my guide. And she passed away aged only 30 years old in March 2020. But she's the one, as one of my guides, has pushed me how to learn how to read Akashic Records. You experienced that a few days ago. My spiritual expansion has come from the deepest, darkest moments. But the weird thing about when Sidra left this realm is there was a knowingness in me, I guess because of the work I'd done, she was exactly where she was meant to be. And I know she can help so many more people, including me, from that side. So it's really interesting on this journey, right? And I'd love for you to talk, if you don't mind, more about what's your connection to your mom like on the other side? How does that feel for you?
It's funny that you say that. I also, I'm going to say this in a humorous way, and I hope people don't take this the wrong way. Having a passed away mum is a life hack. She helps me with so many more things than when she's on the other
It's a life
side.
hack.
It's like, honestly, there's something about it. Like, I didn't enjoy the journey too, and there was a process of acceptance after. But like now, I feel so unbelievably supported and held by my mother. And it's really funny. It's like when I can't figure out something or fix something on the physical plane, I also don't tell many people this, but I'm like, Mum, can you please just like wiggle some things? And she
Wiggle some
has.
things. I
I'm
love
like,
it.
just like, it's so easy for you. And she sends me these messages and she's like, oh, you think it's so hard? Look at me. And like, me and my mum had a very jokey relationship as well, right? And so I would probably say that I am a very needy human daughter for a passed away mother. And I'm not ashamed of that. I'm like, I love feeling that she's there. I love knowing that she's there. I'm like, the other day I joked to her, I was like, you better not be thinking about like just so you know, like, we're doing this for a long time. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah, you're stuck with me.
yeah, you're stuck with me. I'm like, you birthed me, you're stuck with me. I can sense you. I've got this ability. So like, do you know, like, we're doing this, right? There's something there was something very destabilizing when I initially lost her, right? This whole center point. I had this thing of, I don't have a mother. I felt very much like lost in the world until I realized, like, actually that's not true. Firstly, I'm a child of God. I'm a child of the earth. And then secondly, this is my belief system. I am her daughter, but for this lifetime, I'm not just that. We've got this agreement together, I feel, with my mother. And it's
The
really
soul
beautiful
contract,
doing life with her in human. Yeah, it's a soul contract in human and in not. And I have a lot of trust in our relationship, whatever form it's in.
I love that. I love that. And it's always a good reminder of, again, to anyone that's listening, if you've lost a loved one, allow yourself to connect in a different sort of way. because I remember talking to my dad passing away, and I now know he was very much ascended soul here. He was very gifted spiritually. I wasn't at the time, so I didn't, it was. But because I knew that he was ascended, and I just assumed that when he transitioned, and I knew he ascended when he transitioned, that he wasn't around me. But the weird thing is, in the work I've done over the past few years, his vibration, his energy is different on the other side. And actually, ironically, he's always around me. And it's just like really interesting when you open yourself up. And that's why it's a good reminder that anyone's here is be open to the vibration, the energy of loved ones that are transitioned, for the energy to be different, and have a conversation. When Dad passed away, he was in India, so I wasn't there. When Mum passed away, I was away. Actually, I was on a Bob Proctor cruise of all places, and I was so angry that I wasn't there. And I remember when I've shared this story before, but I remember when I was leaving the boat, we were on a cruise, and Bob Proctor wanted to see us before, and he was like, "How are you feeling?" I'm like, "I'm so angry. I'm so," part of my language, but I was pissed off with God. I'm like, "Well, hold on. I wasn't there when Dad passed away. I wasn't there when Mum's passed away. What's going on?" And Bob Proctor he said this one sentence: "You are where you're meant to be." And there was a power in that sentence that got me through the next phase, because I knew everything had happened in the sequence it was meant to. And then I think about when Sidra left this realm, I knew our soul contract wasn't done, just like your soul contract with your mum. And that's why I learned how to read Akashic Records. And Akashic Records and the readings I've done have changed lives for thousands. And it's just like, when you open yourself up and realize the soul it's on a journey, and death, and we've done, death isn't as final as, of course, you're going to have that human pain. I mean, that human loss. It's always harder for those left behind, right? It's always. But the more that you can realize that the soul continues, and actually a lot of the time your spiritual upgrade actually comes with death. Maybe that just opens you up to a different. So I'd love to hear more from you in terms of, if you had any advice for maybe somebody that's going through something right now. They feel like they have the world's weight on their shoulders. They feel not sure where, because I feel like a lot of people are going through this rebirth and they're feeling kind of like they're all alone. Nobody really understands. It's just an interesting phase. So have you got any advice, any ideas, anything you want to share with anyone that's feeling that way?
So there was a map that I was taught of consciousness or the universe from the shamanic system, and the shamanic system taught me it was the thing that initiated big change in my life. And it's because it gave a system to life that was easy for my mind, which has helped me navigate numerous challenging things since. And so the way that I was taught life works the Inca tradition is the tradition that I've studied, is that life exists on 4 planes: the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, and the energetic. And when we're navigating something challenging, the challenging thing exists on the physical plane, on the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, and the energetic. So when I'm getting in the tears about something, I take it through the 4 planes and it just helps me resolve it. And I do a lot of practices around it, but it can be as simple as, let's say that one of the things that's happened in your spiritual journey is maybe that you're feeling less connected to the people that you used to feel connected to, right? So on the physical plane, right, it could be something simple, because physical is just facts, really. It's the material. So it's like, I used to have 20 friends and now I've got 2 friends, right? I'm just picking up something. But what's interesting for you, because the thing that creates pain and suffering for you is the story that you tell around that. And what's really empowering is that the story that you tell around it isn't necessarily true. And actually, usually it's not helpful, but we need to have the awareness. So if you noticed you've got 2 friends and you're feeling the lack, you might take that up to the emotional and the mental. You ask yourself, okay, what's the story? I'm telling myself that I'm a really shit person and that's why I've got less friends, or I knew that I wasn't lovable, or I knew that I'm bad with people, or I knew that I was too weird, or I knew that it was wrong to be different. I knew that being myself would cause me pain, right? What life is doing, it's showing you the stories that you have in your head so you can choose differently, right? And so let's say you identify, I knew being different would cause me pain. That was one of my stories. That's why, like, I know this one. Do you know what I mean? I know this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew that being different would cause me
For
pain.
sure.
Yeah. I knew that I could, this sense of feeling ostracized. And so then you play with that, right? Well, how do I feel when I think that being different is bad? Oh, I feel like almost this self-rejection. Is that how I want to feel? No, I don't want to feel that. Okay, let's play with this belief. What if it wasn't true? What if the evidence that I've got from that is just because I believed it? How does the universe work? What you believe you create, what you believe you see. Cool. Who could I be if I chose not to believe that? Wait a minute, I could be different and loved. Whoa! New
I
timeline
love
just
it.
opened. Do you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
the emotional and mental work that's the dying to yourself. I'm done with that story. I want to be different and I want to be loved. And those two people that are now my friends and not the rest are really awesome. Spiritual plane, because you always take it up a level, right, is understanding that everything that's happened in your life is perfect. You might look back on it and go, that was bad,
Yeah.
that was wrong, that was da-da-da. But like your soul's like, even in the worst moments in your life, your soul is like, this is excellent. We are going to create so many good things from this. And the human's
Yeah.
like, like that's how. And so on the spiritual plane, we want to ask ourselves, well, if this is exactly perfect, if there is nothing wrong with what's happening, if two friends is who I was meant to have in this moment, what is the greater soul journey that I'm on? Oh my God, to fall in love with myself. Oh my God, there's so much to gain from this. I thought it was that I've just got two friends, but I'm on a journey of loving myself no matter what. Boom, you've started to
Wow.
transmute it. Energetic asks you, where do you want to go? Because you're always creating with your thought, your frequency.
Yeah.
And so the way that I describe it to my clients, it's like being at sea, in a boat, not that I have any experience with that really, and you're throwing the anchor. Where do you want to throw it? Okay, you want to be different and you want to be loved. Let's hold that. We felt our pain. We've done the healing work. We've seen the greater soul journey we're on. Now, where do you want to go, darling?
Yeah.
And what I love about this system is that you're not just trying to manifest by ignoring your current suffering. It's like you're taking a seat and you're saying, okay, you're feeling pain. Let's look at this. Let's feel this. Let's be with this. Let's be with the human. And so it's this integrating as well. It's like being so beautifully human, but also understanding that you're spiritual and understanding that you're also kind of like a magician. You're human and a magician. And so we want
I love it.
to know that we've got those abilities.
I love it. I love it. There's so much in what you shared, and it's just, I don't know. Sometimes I'll say to people, everything that happens to you serves you in some kind of way, and I know that triggers people because it's like, well, hold on, I'm just going through immense pain. How is it serving me? And it's always a good reminder to go back and go through your most painful experience. How much did you expand? But again, if you realize that everything you're going through, your soul picked, and if you can't make it fun, I guess, when I work with people, I always ask them about their full bodies, and I feel like you do something similar, right? It's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Why don't you check in with those bodies every once in a while? How do you feel physically? And then rate yourself 0 to 10. How do you feel mentally? Again, it's just like you check in and it gives you an insight, because the first stage in any healing is always awareness. And asking the questions you just talked about brings you into an awareness, and it's so powerful. So I'd love to ask the listeners at this stage, what story are you telling yourself? And how could you change that story? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that can relate to only having two friends, maybe going from 20 to 2, because I feel like our inner circle has gone so much smaller, and it needed it, because we're going through this upgrade, and we need to keep our circles small. But I always remember the phrase where God, the universe, source, whatever you want to call it, clears your path because he or she can hear the conversations that are happening behind your back. So what if the people that have been cleared from your life are no longer serving you? And this journey it was about self-love, but also nurturing the souls that are around you, and really checking with yourself, and just, are the souls around you nurturing you? Are they expanding you? Are those soul contracts complete? because this is a period where so many soul contracts are being complete. But the beauty of soul contracts being complete is new ones beginning. So do we focus on the soul contracts being complete, or do we focus on the new ones that are coming in?
So I just adore this. It's so interesting. I did an energetic process a couple of months ago, and I went into a trance state, which is pretty easy for me. And I was asking questions to my higher self about my business, team, and different people-related situations. And I said, do I have to really let go of them? I don't want to, because I kind of, I'm like, no. And they showed me, it was a very clear image, and I've never got it. They showed me this fruit bowl. And they say, because my connection to unseen is always very jovial and jokey. Actually, I think it is for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm shown this.
Our guides have jokes for sure.
Right? Yeah. They're shown this fruit bowl, and then there's a rotten banana put into the fruit bowl. And they're like, what happens when you put a piece of rotten fruit in a fruit bowl, Hannah? The whole fruit bowl goes rotten. Do you know what I mean? They're like, you can keep it, but this is what's going to happen. It's not saying that someone or something is rotten. But let's say, for example, you've got a big, big vision. And I say this because I do, right? And I'm building things, and I'm building business, and I'm building purpose, and I'm doing all these things, right? So let's say you've got a team, and one of the team members has got much lower standards. We were talking about this. You hold your frequency, you don't bring it down. That's something you said to me. But one of the team members' standards are so much lower, right? They're always in this doubt. They don't get things done. They're always complaining, right? In the end, you'll find yourself complaining a bit more, or your standards are a little bit lower. That's the mold, right?
Yeah,
and it looks like,
true.
it doesn't really matter. But over time, that compounds. It's called energy transference. It's like you do become those around you.
Very true. I mean, they say, you become with the 5 people around you. That's who you become, right? This is why I feel like being very clear on who an inner circle is really important. We have an intuition. We know when, as you say, that team member that's dragging you down, intuitively that person's dragging you down, and it becomes a choice. And I feel like the energy we're in right now is to make those choices that are in our highest. And we're not here to stop somebody's pain. So what if by keeping that team member on, actually we're stopping that person from expanding, from healing, and actually we're clearly holding ourselves back? And just because who are we to stop someone else's pain? Just I love this human experience if you're open to the magic of it. And I get it, sometimes it's hard, right? Especially at the moment. But if you can make it fun like you've just done, I feel like it's doesn't have to be as intense as we're choosing to. I spent many years in the corporate world, and honestly, when I left the corporate world, it was, I had no choice. The energy and the vibration, I just couldn't be in that. So I'm curious, because you bridge both worlds, and I know I do that with a lot of my clients. They come from the corporate space, but I couldn't be in that energy all the time. But you strike me as somebody who manages your energy really well to be in that. You could call it, that dimension of the corporate, which requires some healing, right? But still to keep your energy high. So I'm just curious, how do you do that? How do you be in that world and be such a strong light and not let it affect your energy?
This is such a funny question, because I'm so odd, and I'm so different to anyone else's life journey. So what most people do, and this is the best way that I can explain this, because half it's practice and half it's by accident, right? Let me be really honest with this. So I'm not going to blow my trumpet at something that is actually an accident. So when I finished university, most of my girlfriends and everyone, they went into these corporate jobs because what they were interested in was, and that's how it was sold in England. I'm sure we'll have people listening all over the world, but it's like you become a young professional, you go to London, you work in this, whatever it is, and that's where you're going to make, money. But I come from a bit of a hippie family. My father's a Norwegian crime fiction translator. So basically,
Wow.
at 50 years old, he went, I like Norwegian. I like books, let's make money. And it worked, okay? So there's a level of conditioning that I'm getting that is very fortunate. Doesn't mean that you can't develop the conditioning, but like I think it's important to share that. And my mum was a university lecturer, and she was also someone that was slightly off the wall, and that was very acceptable and fine in my family. So I finished uni and I went, I'm going to learn to heal myself and heal the world. And so I was a waitress. I worked with disabled kids. I worked at an autism diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
I did nothing for money. You know, I was broke until I was about 26, like longer, 27. I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in, who am I? How do I heal? Like, my mum's dying. Oh my God, I'm mortal. How do I feel about my death? You know, I was very in that. And so it was an experiment. When my mum passed away, I said, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this shamanic map of healing that I just said, the 4 dimensions, and I'm going to apply it to business. And I'm going to do the manifestation work. And I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to build a business from the core spiritually. And I had no corporate experience. I had no people around me that were in corporate. So I had no conditioning from it. And we got to 7 figures in 2.5 years. And everyone was like, wait, Hannah? Hannah did. Hannah. You mean Hannah? Like, you mean, like, it was very perplexing for everyone. And so I built in such a different way that I'm so disconnected from that world. And so I've built in, and it wasn't because it was like, oh, I want to build a new paradigm of business. It was because I was like, now let's just take the healing work and let's apply it to the material concept. It worked. I've been in a lot of abusive relationships. So I took this, applied it to that, got a fantastic life partner. He's absolutely excellent, even though sometimes I think he's the most annoying man in the world. If I come back to my center, I love him and he's great. Right?
Are you trying to convince
And
us
the
or yourself?
business is, yeah, doing it yourself. No, he is.
I know, I'm just joking with
Um,
you.
but we're very playful. So he's ex-military, and so he sometimes forgets that I'm like a little woman and that we don't bond like military men. But anyway, that's part of our relationship, which I enjoy.
Sure.
And so I took it to relationships, I took it to business, I took it to all of these things. And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm doing something really differently to other people. And I think that that's why the clients flocked,
Yeah.
because we weren't doing it in the same way. But what I found is we've got 2 extremes. So we've got people that have been in the business world, and they're so 3D and they're so disconnected from here that creates a certain set of problems. But then we've got people that have disliked the business world, overcorrected, gone so spiritual that they now find the business hard. And what I do is I integrate both and just, remind people that we need, feet rooted and hands in heaven.
Wow. Feet rooted, hands in heaven. Such a beautiful way of putting it. And it feels like actually you not being in corporate and having that background kind of helped you break the mold because you didn't have the programming. So it just meant that you didn't have, kind of what so many of us have. And it's interesting. I had to go through a rebirth to kind of release that corporate space to become who I am today. But it feels like you're free from programming, which, your upbringing and what you went through allowed you to limit that programming. So beautiful. So beautiful. And I feel like you keep your energy high in that corporate situation by being you.
For me, business is like painting the most beautiful canvas. And if it's not that, I don't want it. And that's my rebellious spirit. And business can be that too.
Wow. That's so true. Life doesn't need to be as complicated, right? Why can't our connection with our guides be fun? Why can't whatever happens to us be an experience? I remember Sidra always used to say, if you get triggered, get excited. And I used to look at her and I was like, what do you mean? Because she used to get so angry and then within a second she'd be smiling, laughing. I'm like, she's like, yeah, because when you get triggered, it's an opportunity. It's so true. When you get triggered, it means there's something inside you ready to heal. But we get lost in the story, just like you were talking about earlier. Why did this person do that? Oh my God. And this person, whoever this person is, probably doesn't even know they did anything to you, but we wrap ourselves around this story. And for me, this whole conversation is really about changing your story, because whatever you focus on expands. If you focus on not having enough friends, then the universe is not going to be okay. If you focus on having a beautiful love for yourself, then the universe is going to give you more of that. Just love it. I love it. I'd love for you to share more about what do you do. So kind of what's the process that you've developed, and, kind of what does that look like?
So I created a system of healing. It's called integrative healing. It's a 4-dimensional multiple modality approach to healing. So it's very much taking the 4 dimensions, which are not mine, but ancient wisdom, and put together a modality system. So nervous system healing, hormone healing, different ways of mental and emotional healing, different forms of spiritual healing, different forms of relationship healing, and different forms of energetic manifestation. But that's what it started with, right? So hence the School of Integrative Healing. But there's 2 parts to the work that I do. I believe that healing done correctly should always be manifestation, especially trauma healing should be manifestation. It's 2 sides of the same coin. I teach people to manifest anything they want, like anything. I've got clients that do such different things, like someone's creating an album in LA, someone's starting a business in nutrition, someone's in architecture for sustainable things, someone sings opera and peace. Like my clients do so many different things, but the core is spending time on learning how to create consciously. And that is going to involve doing your healing work. So that's one half of what I do. The other half of what I do is imagine that, but in business. So instead of looking at you through the 4 lenses, we look at your business through the 4 lenses. I teach people how to scale to their first $250,000, maybe 7 figures, depending on where people come in. But then we also have groups that are making $250,000, making 7 figures, making multiple 7 figures and more, that don't come to us more for the business development. They're like, well, I want to feel like you feel when you do business. And so they come for the personal development, right? The best way if you're interested is just to message me on Instagram, which is at Hannah, spelled with a J, because my parents wanted to make my life so simple. So J, I know, like J, you ain't forgetting that. Jana Bartlett Alonso. And just drop me a message and just, you know what? I think sometimes if you're anything like me, people get nervous when you drop into the message to someone. Just say, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I want. We've got so many courses. I will only be able to know what's appropriate for you if I know what's going on in your life. And I'll say, this is for you. This is not for you. Or actually, let me recommend you to someone else. And I think that's always the easiest.
I love it. And obviously, I'll include your details in the show notes. So if people want to reach out, they can. And it's interesting. It's like, it feels like, so I know anyone I work with, I should come with a health warning, i.e., you need to be ready to do the deep work. You need to be able to kind of release the programming, but it doesn't need to be as serious. So I love the way you describe it. So it feels like you're the same. Anyone that is going to come and work with you needs to be ready to do the deep work, but also not take it so seriously. I think that's beautiful.
Absolutely. And to look at yourself. That's the thing.
The other topic I wanted to kind of touch with you just came to me is, I want to explore a little bit your connection with your guides. How did that develop? How did you kind of get to a point where it's more of a fun connection than an intense? Because I know for a lot of people I work with, it's like, I help them to understand it's a partnership, right? We sometimes, oh my God, I can't see, I can't hear, I only feel and intuition. And it really is a journey it's unique to people. And it's just, people get stressed out about not being able to see stuff, only be able to hear stuff or feel stuff, and really take it seriously. Oh my God, I need to get messages. But it feels like you kind of got to a stage where you have fun with them.
I think I've got more of a connection with the deceased than my guides. So I want to be very clear with that. To be 100% honest.
Right? It feels like your mom is one of your guides. So it's interesting.
I'm like, and that has been the determination to want to connect, right? Because I miss her. So I think that's a piece. But there's practices. So for me, mornings and evenings are sacred. Busyness happens in the day. Business happens in the day. I have non-negotiables in my life. I'm not willing to build a business at the sacrifice of my health. I'm not willing to build a business at the sacrifice of my relationship. I'm not willing to build a business at the sacrifice of my own spiritual connection. I'm not willing to build a business at the sacrifice of my connection to, right? And so my days are in accordance to that. And it's like everything. It's like you can't water a seed once and expect it to bloom. It's like there is a devotion, there's a daily devotion. It's not that I walk around like a cartoon characters with little like birds around my head tweeting messages in. It's like there's space in my life every morning. I'm really lazy, okay? I just feel like it's important to say. So I sleep about 10 hours a night, if I'm allowed. I slept 8 last night and I was like, excuse me. I'm very lazy. And I need about an hour to 2 hours in the morning, and I will do work for just practices. And I will play with things and I will practice forms of channeling. And I'll do it every day without much expectation because I'm just honing not just the connection, but the trust in myself. And I'm not doing it in a way. Some people get annoyed because, I found it quite easy. But I think the reason that I found it quite easy is that I'm not attached to it. I don't
Yeah,
make
you
it
let
mean
go.
something about me. Yeah, you call it like I don't care if it comes through or it doesn't come through. I don't care. I don't care if I have an elevated experience or a normal experience. I like it all. Like all of the above, good. You know?
Wow.
And so in our spiritual journey, sometimes we want to have these ecstatic experiences and that's what keeps you away. If you can just surrender, drop your body, let it go, and let it be whatever it is, and trust, even if you get something tiny, at some point it's going to be helpful, or today it's going to be helpful. And the more that you do that, you'll start having the great epiphanies and it will start coming
I
through.
love it. I love it because I always talk about like so many of us are waiting for this big epiphany, right? This big flash in the sky, this big experience that they hear from other people. Remember that other people talk about their main experience, but then if you can appreciate the magic in each moment, what if all those magic moments add up to a bit massive epiphany? The magic is in the moment, right? It's our expectations of how things are going to look like. And, it feels like you've created your own mold. You're not, whether it's 6 hours sleep, 8 hours sleep, 10 hours sleep, you've created a mold that works for you. And that's what's really important right now is we create and we do things that work for us, whatever. I don't, honestly, I can't remember the last time I slept for 10 hours. I love the night. I'm a kind of, my connection to source at night. It's just, and I'm kind of addicted to it. It's just like, I feel so much peace. And I think for me, part of it is also because, wherever I'm at the time, most of the world is sleeping. So I just feel at ease because it's, and my connection to source is beautiful at that time. But I recognize I probably need to get more rest and the importance of it. But again, does it matter? If
You
I love the
create your own
night,
rules.
yeah. And what if there are no rules? But they're your boundaries. And it's like, as you call them, non-negotiable. It's your self-care and creating those boundaries of what works for you. If you know that 10 hours is kind of where you thrive, then why would you not get 10 hours? If blocking out an hour in the morning and doing whatever practices you want, what's stopping you? I love it. I love it. I love it. And I could talk to you for hours about this stuff because it feels like you're such a free spirit. I love it. But as we close out, I'd love for you to share any final nuggets of wisdom you have. And I'm going to ask you for some journal prompts. So I'd love for you to share what's in your heart. And if you've got any journal prompts, because I always love, it's a great conversation, but I always love for our listeners to maybe go deep on some of the takeaways. So curious what's in your heart to share.
Do you know what came straight through me? I once received a marketing email, of all places, to receive wisdom, but it was fantastic. And as a marketer, I appreciate a marketing email. Anyway, the marketing email was telling this story about this lady that I just enjoy her existence. And she's said this phrase that helps her getting through challenging moments. And she says, if one day I'm going to look back and be grateful for this, can I find gratitude now? And that one sentence, I'd never heard it before. I'm talking about 3 months ago. That really helped me. And I feel like I just felt intuitively that someone listening, that's going to be an anchor. And an anchor is something that you can use when you're navigating something's challenging that brings you back to power. Right?
Wow.
Journaling prompts. Can you not focus on what you think the year's going to be? Can you not focus on thinking this is the context? We often, and it's a common pattern, think that time in things is linear. And we think, if this has happened in 2024, then this is what's going to keep happening for the rest of the year. But life isn't linear, and it doesn't have to be linear. When you play in possibility, it actually makes no sense. So if all of that was crap, and you could actually decide what you're going to create for this final trimester, what do you want to create? You're completely free. What do you want to create this year? Is it something completely different to what's come before? Good. Now you're actually owning your creative abilities. So sit with that.
I love it. I love it. And I guess the last part I'd add to that is let go of how it's going to come through. Because that's what we also get stuck in. It's like we want to dream big, and it's like, but how is that going to happen? No, I'll just, and then you talk yourself out of it. Let go. What if the universe is here to show off? I was like asking the universe, you know what? I really feel it's time for you to show up and show off for me. So show off.
Show up and show off. Oh my God, that's so good. I'm going to say this to my mum. Mum, show off. Go on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, show up first, right? I want to show up and then show off. You know what I mean? Why not?
Can I share a story on this super quickly?
Yeah, of course.
I was manifesting a certain amount of money, sizable size of money. And it was because I was acclimatizing my body to a new product that we were selling that's very high ticket, very high end. And I was like, oh my God, can I allow myself to receive that at once? And so I started doing the frequency work. All the frequency work sounds complicated. It's very easy. You just got to remember to do it. Is you've got to remember that you're a radio station, right? And the emotions that you hold in your body is the radio station that you're on. So if you're in scarcity around money, you can only receive scarce supplies, right? So you want to create more abundance, you need to be able to hold the feeling of abundance for longer. So I was like, just playing with this amount. I was going to bed. I was like, da 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 da, right radio station. Waking up in the morning, listen to my meditation, da da da, right radio station. I was thinking about this number. I had no idea how it was going to come in because I was still putting together the business strategy. Didn't really care. See, not caring is also a life hack.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wake up. I look at my phone. I think I spoke to you the day after this, and my dad just texted me. My dad's like, we've just found a bank account that your mum put money into when you were 10. I'm 32. Even when your mum passed away, apparently the financial advisor had no idea it was there. Like the whole family has lost this bank account for the last 22 years. Okay. And he's like, so I've just decided to, it's an ISA, so I'm going to say defrost it. That's so incorrect, but it's funny to me. That's humorous to me. And I'm going to give it to you girls. I've got a sister, right? Me and my sister are super close. She's very fun. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, when is this happening? Is this like, like when? And Dad goes, oh, it's already in your bank account. It's in this random bank account that I never use because I don't live in the UK. And I look and I'm like, and I do the conversion from pounds to euros. And it's the exact amount of the new product that I'm selling. Boom, mum. You think it's hard to create this much money, but I just go boom and it's done. That's literally the message I got.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And that's an example of letting go. It's like how it just came. You just, I love it. I love it. Letting go and just trusting. That's such a beautiful. And yeah, I guess if that's one message we can leave to our listeners is ask the universe, ask your guides to show up and show off. Why not? I love it. And I could talk to you for hours. I love your energy. I love your vibration. You're such a bright light. Thank you for being a guest on this podcast. I'm sending so much love and light out to you and all the listeners. Just be present. Enjoy the moment. And I'm going to hand over to you to close us out.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much for what feels like a wonderful week together. And I'm knowing and seeing that little seeds are being planted in people's hearts. And when a seed's planted, gotta bloom if you look after it. So that's now up to you.
Wow. Thank you. It's any love and light. Bye for now.